while it's a potential cost savings, certainly a potential opportunity for them to have a more open, free, flexible environment in terms of preventing vendor lock-in and those kinds of things. Of course, there are trade-offs with that. The ownership in that environment may shift to them more of the integrations associated with the different packages that they're starting to implement. So the challenge is often that balance between a package solution that's well supported by a vendor that costs more versus a series of packages that you may have to integrate yourself and then own those integrations over time, which can be more complex and demands that you maintain a staff and resources to support that yourself, or at least interact with the community that supports it. Well, I think often the best examples are those agencies that are leveraging it for the operating systems and virtualization platforms that they're using. In many cases, you'll see agencies that are able to leverage open source for sort of the baseline infrastructure components, and then may reach out to commercial packages that might run in those environments, common things like Oracle and MySQL and those kinds of things. But I think the opportunity around open source is the ability to really tackle some of the open source frameworks around things like OpenStack that will allow them to sort of define architectures around open source and then plug in the components that are appropriate. Some of those may be open source and some of those may come from a vendor. I think that what we will continue to see is a general upward trend around adoption of open source software packages and open source software around development. But I think that the real changes we're going to see are around cloud computing. So we're going to start to see more open platforms for virtualization, things like KVM and Zen. Some of those may come from commercial packages like Red Hat. I think we're going to see an embrace of OpenStack as a standard, and then we're going to see vendors come and put OpenStack interfaces and OpenStack control mechanisms that go beyond that base capability that OpenStack would provide. I think we're also going to see things, some really interesting stuff around software-defined networks based on the OpenFlow, which is an open construct for being able to interact with networking and aspects of the network, so firewalls, routers, load balancing mechanisms, being able to reach and define those components additional as part of a service. So we'll say, I'm going to define this email environment, and part of that is physical servers, part of that is storage, part of that is routers and firewalls. And when I push a button to say, give me that in the cloud environment, OpenFlow and OpenStack will be the interaction mechanism with all those different components to bring that together as a single service. Make sure you understand the trade-offs between around ownership of the integrations associated with those open source packages. I think the challenge is always, what do we want to reach out to a vendor and let them support, and what do we want to support ourselves? If we have the resources to manage our own development team, manage our own packages, and interact with the open source community, then it may make a lot of sense. As long as we have a good plan for how we handle all those integrations over time, because it can become very complex and very resource dependent. If the person that handles a particular packages leaves the organization, can someone else come in and easily understand all that code and those interactions that have been created? So that, I think, understanding that is the biggest thing that you can do to ensure that you're successful. You may also take that understanding and say, well, here it makes sense to bring a commercial package in for this piece. Maybe we're going to use these open source applications or these open source virtualization infrastructure, but we're going to bring in a commercial automation piece or a commercial networking component or something like that versus going open source up and down the whole stack, because that might just be more than a lot of organizations can handle on their own. Today, HP has a comprehensive strategy around cloud. The core to that strategy is OpenStack. OpenStack is what will bring together all of these varying components that we have. HP may be known as a printer company, but we're the largest server vendor in the world. We're the #4 software vendor in the world. And what we're doing is bringing open source and OpenStack interfaces into that environment so that companies or organizations actually do have true modularity to be able to bring in around our reference architecture. So I would say our biggest contribution in that space is probably around our open architecture for convergence of all the different delivery models of cloud, whether it's private cloud, public cloud, being able to have standard control panels, standard user interfaces, standard modes of management and security. That's what HP is going to bring to the table. So that if you want to get a piece of it from Amazon, and you want to get a piece of it from HP, and a piece of it from Red Hat, and a piece of it from BMC, you can do that in a supported, maintainable solution, and HP would be the glue. That reference architecture would be the glue to all of that.